Okay, good day. Welcome back to the channel. It's a beautiful Mother's Day weekend. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there. And we had plenty going on today. Started off the day prepping everything to prime. We've got the PTO drive for the ZAU taped off, ready for some primer. The cylinder and everything for the roller lift. So we're going to get that under a coat of primer today. I just don't want anything flash rusting on me. So I'm going to use what I have left of that green primer from the 335. And then everything else is going to have to get the red can primer, or I'll have to get some generic stuff. But as far as the self-etching, this is all I've got left. So I'm hoping to get through this little bit yet, and then yeah, we can start putting stuff together. And then everything pretty much went downhill from there. I decided that I had a little extra time, so I tried my hand at a couple of the oil seals. I've got the new oil seal, and we're going to get that driven in. I've got a little bit of lubrication we'll put on the outside. And we'll try to get it started in. Nope. I don't think that OD is right. So I ordered some new oil seals and they're on their way, and I ordered some spares this time. Obviously they're not my forte, but we'll get them in and we'll get it done. Then I decided to start some of the work on the ZAU. So I pulled off the plate where the PTO shaft goes, and this happened. Oh. I did not anticipate that. Oh, shoot. And so here we are, 3 25-pound bags of oil dry later. This time I have the exact replacement for the 50059 National Seal. On eBay I found some old new stock, and I've got 2 of them, so we have 2 chances to get this put in right this time. So let's see if we can do it. There we go. Well, I think we're driving in. Okay, we're started. Now I just have to find that socket that fits this to drive it all the way in. There. Seated. There we go. The new oil seal for the PTO drive for the Z. Okay, no joke, this is how UPS delivered my package today. And yes, it is currently raining. However, I just got this off the truck, so it hasn't been out in the weather for more than 10 minutes. Well, at least you can tell what it is. I bought another one of the 10A80 UNI cylinders, and you'll see the reason why. But yeah, had this been anything else, I would not be happy. Okay, now that we're done with all the fun games from the oil spill, I've got everything cleaned up, and I'm ready to start mocking up the roller lift. I've got everything over here lined up and ready to go in the order in which we're going to get it put together. Starting with the belt pulley drive and the bracket for that support arm for the cylinder. I got all the hardware cleaned up. Yes, I do have a couple of non-Rockford bolts. Unfortunately, that's just going to have to be what it is. So yeah, we're just going to start throwing parts on. Okay, the first thing I have to do is I have to remove this connecting rod that goes to the hydraulic tank and actuating lever. This is the old lever for engaging and disengaging the hydraulics, so that we won't be using anymore. So we're going to get this out of the way. I already pulled the cotter pins out of this. It should pop right off. It does. And that becomes a relic. Now I'm going to take this loose from the transmission cover. And I'm going to take this bolt loose from the transmission, and you'll see why in a little bit. Okay, that's all the parts that come off for now. Now we can start putting parts on. And we're going to start with placing the belt pulley drive in. I am going to just place it in without a gasket for right now. And when we put it in permanently, I'll put the gasket on. There, meshed right in. Okay, next we've got this brace that goes right here. And I've got the bolts that I took out of that cover that was covering this drive port, and I found it really interesting as I cleaned them up that there's a little bit of paint on the tip of a couple of these, which makes me think that this plate was off, and I'm thinking they were worried about seepage through the threads. So either they dipped it in paint or they put some kind of a coating on it so it wouldn't leak. I'm going to use the longer of the two that I have for this. And then I've got these 4 square-headed ones that I'm going to put back here. Okay. And I am going to snug the top 2 just because we are going to put a little bit of weight on this by the time that it's done, and I don't want it falling off. Now the next piece. Up a little higher. So the reason that we took this bolt out is for this brace that goes on the back side of the arm that holds the cylinder. Boy, it sure doesn't look like there's a lot of room in there. So I'm going to put that arm up there. Maybe it goes to the outside? Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? So then this guy would go through there, through there, and then this brace would essentially go like that. But I missed something. I'll get this snug down and then I'll grab it. This bracket needs to go right here for support of the hydraulic hose. So that needs to go on. So we got to pull this out again, put that on, and then run it back through. Alright, so now we'll snug that up. There. Okay, so far quick and painless. Now I have to make that bearing plate for the underneath of the roller press. Now that this is where it needs to be, I can actually cut that out and get it mocked up. And you can see back here, I've already got my template, and I've got a nice stock piece of steel that I can get that all cut out. So that's the next step. Once I have that cut out, I'll bring it back and we can go even further. Looks pretty good to me. Now all we got to do is drill some holes. Okay everybody, the bearing plate is complete. As you can see, the 3 bolts that fit into the transmission cover are drilled and they all thread. The support bolts all match up. The bearing bolt and end bolt in this case runs all the way through. The other bearing cap has been put in all the way through, and the end of the support arm is in and all the way through. So now I can take it apart, I can put that under primer, and then I can temp it back together and we can move on to the next step. That's a huge piece to have out of the way. Okay, we got our primer coat on. We're a little bit tacky yet, but it's quick drying, so it'll be fine. We're gonna start right here, and because it's gonna be really tough to get these nuts on I'm going to do this first. Okay. There. Now we can put in those front three. That feels like a bit. Yep. Alright, before I snug those down tight, I am going to put the ends on. Okay, and before I snug those up, I'm going to get the other end on. Have to move you. Go. Back to this side. Put the last cap on. Okay, it's all snugged down and it rolls like it should. Okay. Now the next piece, the cylinder. Alright, so truth be told, this is why I purchased the other cylinder. Simply for that back ring. And interestingly, this one is a lot thinner than this one. So I don't know if this is a replacement already, but I very gingerly pulled this out of that cylinder that came in that torn up package. And the rest of it I'm going to just pull apart and part out. This will go back into my good cylinder, and then we will get it mounted on the Z. Like a glove. There it is. Now I just got a few more odds and ends to do. We have to work on this control lever, and I've got to put another one of those hose brackets on, and then I'll have to measure out what size hydraulic lines I'm going to need. But it feels good to be this far. Alright, if you remember back to when I tore this down and sandblasted it, I had two of these levers, and I was going to determine which one I was going to use, and it looks like the top one, the hole for the bolt is a little bit worn. You can see it's a little oblong compared to the bottom one, and so I'm going to use the bottom one just so that that's a little more snug on the bolt. And then I had two of these rods, and I think after having them both cleaned up, I've decided I'm going to go with this one. It's a little bit straighter. The top is not quite as bent up, so we're going to use that. And we'll get this guy loaded in like that. So the selector quadrant goes out towards me, this goes in, and this goes down like that. And then our bolt goes through, needs to go through both of them. And the nut. Okay, and then remember, one of the first things we took off was that linkage that was too short. So I've got the proper linkage. Which will now go through here. Have to get a pin for this side. And then it goes through there. Alright, we got cotter pin, and we even have the chain for the key for the cotter pin, which I'll throw a picture of what it looks like in that manual, but that is stock. That's supposed to be there. So this piece really made me happy with how it turned out. We've got the pin in the cylinder. This is not an original pin. I'm not super crazy about it, but it works for now. We got our other pin, and then we've got the knob on the handle. The handle is functional. I do have to tighten this bolt yet, and then I've got a cotter pin through the bolt, which remember wasn't there before. I've got new grease zerks for both bearings, and we've got the lock keep so that the cylinder can't move on its own. That's where you'd lock it in and you'd want it to stay. And then we've got one hydraulic line holder there, and then per the book again, one hydraulic line holder there. So other than the belt pulley, everything that I wanted to accomplish mocking up on this is done. I will get the lines, I'll get those put on, I'll get that thing cleaned up. I gotta get a keyway, and then that can go on, and then it can all come back apart again so I can paint it. But yeah, super thrilled about how all of this turned out. Out here we've got our pile of no longer needed components that I'll probably hang on to and store, and God only knows, use it for something. Our tore down cylinder, and even some more fun projects, but we'll talk about that some other time. And that is going to conclude this video of the ZAU. I am extremely tired. It's been a long week of work and work and work, but I've got a family getaway for the weekend, and so I'm going to be closing the shed door, and it's probably not going to open again for another week or two. When you actually see this posted, it's probably going to be 2 weeks out from when I actually filmed it, so we're going to be a little bit behind. But yeah, that's it. So I really appreciate those of you that are following. If you're not subscribed yet, please do so, and I will catch you on the next one. And as always, take your foot off the clutch. Thanks, everybody.